Hello and welcome to episode 5 of Contra Costa Chats with County Supervisor John Gioia. I'm Robert Rogers on County Supervisor Gioia's staff, and I'm joined here today by Andrew Melendez and Oscar Soriano, a couple of our excellent interns from the local community. Today, Oscar and Andrew are fresh back from UC Berkeley's campus, where they were organizing a student-led action. They were looking to get the vote out and engage local young people in the kinds of politics and policies that'll shape their world today and tomorrow. Andrew, why don't you start by telling us a little more about what you were doing today, and then let's have a free-flowing conversation so we can understand just why this is so important.
Oh, great. Thank you so much, Robert. I couldn't have said it better myself. But yeah, I'm just really, have really had been the great opportunity to go out and really just speak our voice. We went out to, like kind of how you said it, UC Berkeley, over to Sproul Hall in order to spread our voice about what we believe in light of some of the Supreme Court rulings that were going on just this past week. Some of the big topics that we wanted to discuss is the loss of affirmative action, the blockage of the student debt relief that was administered by the Biden administration.
The LGBTQ rights that are being denied within businesses. So basically, if an LGBTQ individual were to go in a bakery shop and they wanted a cake, and the owner of a bakery shop knew that it was for a same-sex marriage couple, then the business owner can deny them based off their race or gender.
Mm-hmm. So during this whole process, we spent a few hours just interacting with the student body at UC Berkeley, just letting them know about what was going on with the Supreme Court decisions, and having a great conversation about what these decisions mean for the individual and for our community as well. So during the course of the few hours that we were there, we spoke with a handful of different kinds of students, each of whom had really great perspectives of what the student debt blockage means for them. And I think that I think you could kind of bring up, Oscar, just some of the kind of instances and some of the discussions that we had as well, which I think were really fruitful.
Yes. Well, I just want to say also thank you for having me on this podcast. It's really great to talk about these issues that are very important. And I actually ran into some folks from high school that were actually opposed to the student debt relief, because they said the tangible consequence of that would be their taxpayer dollars, being paid towards the student debt relief. And it doesn't necessarily work that way too, because there's all different kinds of funding that would help with that. But also, there's just millions, thousands of students that are in debt, and are having a very stressful impact on their life. And I believe us as a democracy can speak with our vote and our voices. And we want every kid to go to college without having to deal with so much debt. We want kids to have a career after college without having to deal with a ton of debt. And knowing that the Supreme Court, overruled it and said, nope, we're not gonna have no student get relieved from this. Knowing that the Biden administration did promise it, and now I think it is a wake up call to many students and graduates that have debt. It's a wake-up call for democracy. And it's a message to say, get to the booth now or forever hold your peace and suffer the consequences of not speaking up.
Totally. Sorry, go ahead.
Say what you're going to say.
I think that's the kind of what we were trying to frame our entire, demonstration and our conversations during the time that we were there. This really is about the fight for our well-being. Not only our social well-being in terms of protection of LGBT rights and, of course, student well-being as well, and our economic ability to pursue an education without having to, be constrained by the burdensome debt that is associated with having a college degree in 2023. So I think that resonated a lot with tons of students, and I'm hoping that, the message that we put out today can resonate with every young person in this country. We all have our own stories of student debt and the financial constraints that are associated with that. In fact, one of the people that we talked to, illustrated their concerns with, the rising cost of tuition in conjunction with the predatory loans and interest rates that they're forced to deal with as a result of the student debt that they have to pay off. And so based on the Supreme Court decision, if things are going to continue the way that they are, payments will resume on August 1st. And so for many students, that period is going to be very concerning.
It really will. And I have a prediction that maybe a lot of students maybe drop out of college just to pay off this debt.
Yeah. I mean, someone that I had the chance to talk to mentioned, once payments begin or resume again in August, they're going to have to decide between continuing to live in their house, in the place that they rent in, or continue in education. And that for me really illustrates just how dire of a situation this entire Supreme Court decision has made for our community.
It really is. And I believe not only can it be just on the federal level, but on the state level too, because each state can implement their own policies of some kind of student debt relief, even though it won't apply to many students, but I think it can help certain students that are low income and do have to pay off debt.
Yeah.
Like how we're doing with compared to like affordable housing, there's certain ways that you have to be qualified for it, which I believe it could, like I said, be brought to a state level.
Yeah. Something I wanted to actually ask you, I guess now that we're on the topic of kind of just some of the intricacies of the Supreme Court decisions, I wanted to ask your experience, and you can kind of bring up some of the conversation that we had about affirmative action and the loss of, the security measures put in place to promote diversity in our schools and public systems. So I kind of wanted to hear kind of what you thought about that decision and kind of what that would mean for, the diversity and the representation in our colleges in the United States.
Well, speaking from his perspective as, a Mexican American, I'm a son of an immigrant mother who came here during the 80s. And, we are a majority minority state in California, which is great. But for other states, it's going to be a little rough. It's going to be a little rough rider right there for the students of color that are trying to apply to maybe a majority white school. And diversity is very important because it is built upon our foundations of America, our Declaration of Independence, even though, back then it was kind of, a little rough, but still though, still the founding fathers knew what this would all apply for.
Yes.
100 years from now or so, from that time period. But because schools like where I go to, Contra Costa College, promoted diversity and equity. At the end of the day, it is going to hurt. This affirmative action ruling is going to hurt a lot of states within the South.
Yeah.
Where, it's kind of rough for people of color. And some schools, like Ivy League schools, like where some people of color try to get in but get rejected, based on their race. But I'm glad to be in California. California is very, welcoming with open arms.
Yeah.
But, like I said, these rulings are really a wake up call. And every child of an immigrant or immigrant student should be obviously just mad at this. It's basically a spit in the face to them, from this ruling. Like I said, you either do something about it or forever hold your peace. Just vote. Yeah. That's all I can just be broad with it. Just vote. Your vote will count. Trust me, it will. As long as everybody gets together, organize, vote.
We can't stress enough, how important it is in times like these where things might seem as if there's nowhere to go. There's no other option.
It's not
We're
the
at
end.
the mercy of a Supreme Court that has consistently ruled against the interests of the American people. I think in times like these, it's always so important to take a step back and realize that, when we're looking at who has the power to shape the direction of our country, it's all of us.
It's all of us.
It's all of us, and it takes a collective action of people working together to ensure that we're advocating for what's right and what's fair. And so I know it seems as if, the situation is dire and that there's nothing that can be done. But, we were going out and producing and trying to inspire people to reframe that mentality and making sure that, they're using this collective anger to produce something good. Yeah. And so a big part of that is registering to vote and making sure that you get your voice heard wherever you are.
Yeah, and even if you're under 18 years old, you can pre-register. So that way when you go to the booth when you're 18, you don't got to do any of the registration additional work. You can just show up and just vote. Yeah. And this is how democracy works. And fact of the matter is that, these rulings, it doesn't necessarily mean it's the end. It's only the beginning for us.
Yeah. I mean, couldn't have said it any more better there
Yeah,
either. So.
honestly. But also, I do want to get into the LGBTQ rights as well.
Oh, yes.
So, like, obviously, they're very well secured in California, but, like...
This is one of the first times that a protected group,
honestly,
is liable to be discriminated against,
Yeah.
And so, that really, the implications of what a ruling like this, like the LGBT ban on
businesses.
On businesses, basically.
Private businesses. But, like, the argument that's brought up is, like, because obviously we have a Civil Rights Act from 1964 that was signed by President Lyndon B. Johnson. From what I've read, it, like, applied to public places, maybe like public buildings such as federal buildings, police stations, and all that. Like, that they can't discriminate them based on their gender or, race. But, it's
now we're seeing that just get completely reversed in front of our eyes.
Yeah.
And I think it just speaks to, this larger idea of, our rights and our livelihoods actively being taken away by the hands of a conservative majority that seems to not really care for the liberties of what we stand for. Looking into some of the rulings and some of the, I guess, the justifications that were going on during that opinion just really illustrates, a completely backwards mentality that I don't think is healthy for our country in the long run.
Yeah, then, like you said, justification. They're not only justifications, but they're political justifications.
Right, it was
based on
framed under
ideology,
free speech kind of mentality, which I understand in many ways, but I think at the same time, when we start to get into the lines of discrimination against what we already have legally identified as a protected group, so in this case, LGBT individuals, I think that just really starts to degrade our well-being and degrades our country in a way that transcends just our freedom to speech. That really just diminishes the livelihood of an entire group and puts them into a mentality in which they are perceived to be second-class citizens.
Exactly. Like, since the days of Harvey Milk in the 70s, LGBTQ rights been attacked for decades. We've fought for them. And here we are, 2023.
Still doing it.
Yeah, they're still doing it. But, I have a lot of good friends in the LGBT community. But at the end of the day, those folks are strong. And I know they will pull through this, and with the guidance from elected officials like John Gioia, good people like him
it takes a
will
community.
assist them. Yeah, that's what it takes. It takes a community and a well-trusted government that we can depend on, and they can depend on us. It goes both ways.
Exactly. Well, I guess we'll go ahead and leave it at that. But just definitely want to leave with this final sentiment of just make sure you get your voice heard. For all the young people out there that believe that there's no hope anymore, just keep that hope going, because we're going to need that in 2024 and beyond.
And remember.
Oh, here you
go. Go vote. Vote, please.
All right.
Vote.
Thank you, guys.